Hi, this is 𝐺𝐵𝐵𝐵 and you are watching Carnevale 24. If you've been following Carnevale 24 for the last few weeks, then you'll probably be aware of a few of our videos discussing the GI or geographical indication for Barbados rum and everything that's happened so far. During our time investigating the Barbadian rum GI issue, we interviewed Richard Seale, who's the CEO and master distiller of Foursquare Rum and is one of the 4 distilleries on the island of Barbados. And in our previous video, Richard Seale addressed each of the objections that led to one of the distilleries in Barbados not supporting the proposed geographical indication for rum in Barbados. In our 4th and final part of the interview, we close out the interview by tackling the claim that column stills were not included in the proposed GI, the assertion that geographical indication might prevent future innovation in rum production, and also gain further insight on rum in Barbados. We hope you've enjoyed these videos, and we also hope that this answers all of the questions you might have regarding geographical indication and rum in Barbados. We hope to have more insightful interviews like this in future, and we'd really like you to comment so that we can find out what you thought of this series and if it did what we wanted it to, which is help us to gain more knowledge and appreciation about our favourite drink in a way that was fun and interesting. But now, without further ado, here's the 4th part of our interview with Mr. Richard Seale. This is 𝐺𝐵𝐵𝐵 and you are watching Carnevale 24. Okay. The last one is arguably one of the most confusing, again, because it probably speaks to my lack of knowledge on the distillation, the ins and outs of the distillation process. But they want to retain or have the ability to make use of a chamber still. Now, one of the articles that one of our research guys passed through to me said that they had invested time basically getting, I think, either installing or repurposing a chamber still in the WIRD distillery. So my question, I suppose, is what is the impact of having this different kind of still? So you have your pot stills, I believe, and you have your, I can't remember it, column stills. And then there's this other kind of still that they want to have the right to use. What impact will that have?
So I'll give you, we won't get into the debate as to what is or what not is a chamber still. However, what I will tell you this is that before they arrived in 2017, no one at West Indies ever called it a chamber still.
Okay.
They called it a pot still. Because that's what it is. But anyway, getting aside, we don't even need to get into that debate. We don't need to. This is a textbook play the victim card, try to discredit a GI. So when the document was first drafted, and this is the document, working with the BIDC and Mount Gay, Foursquare, and Nicholas, we wrote in there, distillation may either be by pot or column still. So our intent really was to say there was no restriction on distillation. So then, amusingly to the rest of us, they were like, no, we have a chamber still. So we, of course, laugh at this, but see, that's a separate question. So what we did is we deliberately changed the language, and we changed it. Distillation shall be by batch or continuous still, so as to make it crystal clear, because those two are, mutually exclusive. Mm-hmm. Distillation is either one or the other. There's no third way. You're either a batch or continuous. Okay. So when we change that language, we basically say to him, listen, it's not the intention of the GI to place any restriction on the distillation method, and we'll change this language for you. So they know that it has been changed, so that there's no debate whether their pot still shaped like a cylinder is allowed or my pot still that's shaped like a pot is allowed. There's no debate. They're all allowed. They're both batch systems.
So it's a non-issue.
It's a non-issue.
Wow. Okay.
All we have done in the distillation, this is why I said to you that what we've done in the GI is we've really just focused on geographical links and quality standards. We've not really tackled methods. So if you look, for example, in Martinique AOC, they prescribe it must be a continuous still. They prescribe how many plates must be in that continuous still. They are very much more specific. We have not gone that road. So we leave you with a lot of versatility on how you can distill. And that's very deliberate. And as I say, it may be something that may evolve in the future, but it's very, very deliberate, because Barbados rum is made. I mean, you go to Mount Gay and they've got pot stills and column stills, and you come to Foursquare and we've got pot stills and column stills. My pot still is not identical to their pot still. My columns. So Barbados rum by its very nature has a wide variety of distilling methods. And so therefore the GI reflects that. The only thing we've got in there is we've said distillation proof under 95%. That's not a particularly onerous requirement. It's just there just to sort of make it clear that, alcohol is not going to be allowed as rum. In other words, you can't distill it too pure. And then we've got in there again a very sort of loose thing. There must be copper. We don't even say how much copper, but again, I mean, that's something, I'd probably love to maybe in the future, but it's not an area of great concern. But so we've got in there, stills must be partially or wholly made of copper. I mean, it's just really a sort of homage to the past, really. I mean, it's very, very loose. We don't say how much copper. So you could probably have a little tiny plate of copper. I mean, you'd be literally in compliance, even if you're breaking the spirit of the rule. I mean, the spirit of the rule is that you recognize that, copper is an important part of distillation. So we would hope that all Barbados stills forevermore have substantial quantities of copper in them. But we haven't laid out, a spec, maybe another time we'll say, you have to have so many square meters of copper per flow rate, and maybe we'll do that. I mean, we have a hard enough time just making sure to get Barbados water with these guys. I mean, imagine that you'd probably throw a complete tantrum if we started to say how much copper you needed to have in the still. No.
Which takes me on to my next
question. It's a non-issue. It's a total and complete and utter non-issue.
Crazy. But this next question doesn't come from me. It actually comes from one of the guys here, but they wanted me to ask you. They wanted to know, since from Maison Ferrand's perspective, GI seems to be flexible and negotiable, do you think Barbados will ever start producing French cognac?
No. and that's what happens when you have a mutual GI legislation. So when you establish GI legislation, what it means is that cognac can register their GI in Barbados. I don't think they have, but they could. And what that meant is that if I went in my still here and I, grew some, I could grow some grapes here in a greenhouse in Barbados and I could distill it. But I couldn't write the words cognac on it.
Right.
Because if they're protected, they're protected. And that's what it really is about. It's about, I'm sure, for example, major brands have their trademarks, registered here. And so I couldn't use their trademark. And then, I couldn't use the same thing with Scotch whiskey. And of course, what those entities have, like Scotch whiskey, they have a whole legal team dedicated using whatever tool they can. So they'll use old-fashioned, civil law tools, law of passing off and things like that, to protect the whiskey. But they'll tell you straight, if you register GI, that gives us the most effective tool. And one of the things, when I speak here with some of the guys here, they're working on a mutual, arrangement with the EU to sort of fast track some local products being registered in the EU, and likewise with us protected. I'll give you an amusing story that just happened to me recently.
Yeah, sure.
Just to show you, how GIs can impact, ordinary consumers' life, which is what they're supposed to do. So I was making I planned to make a pizza at home. I make a pizza every now and again. So my wife was going to pass at the supermarket. So I said, pick up some mozzarella cheese for me. So she arrived home and there was this package, sort of like hard cheese. It said mozzarella cheese. And I thought, what the fuck, right? And so I opened this package and I cut it, which should tell you right away, mozzarella. I mean, it's like cheddar, right? Taste it. It's horrible. So on the package, it says Dutch Farms is the brand. So my first instinct is to think, well, maybe this is Dutch mozzarella.
Yeah.
It's a Chicago brand and the cheese is out of Wisconsin. So buyer beware, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, it just goes to
so I'm in because I didn't buy certified mozzarella cheese.
Things can get really crazy if the floodgates are open.
But that's it. In other words, mozzarella has a certain value. So the Chicago company says, we're going to use mozzarella to get this cheese. And then we're going to use this brand invent this new brand called Dutch Farms, because Dutch is, Holland's famous for cheese. So we'll make people think that this is a famous, it's fucking dreadful.
Wow. Okay, so now Maison Ferrand, they now, as we've discussed, they own one of the top 4 distilleries in Barbados, which is arguably a leading country when it comes to rum. Barbados is. They also own a third of that other distillery in Jamaica. So they already have a seat at those tables and the influence that comes with it. So I suppose the question is, so if the distillery that they now own has historically produced rum at the same quality and authenticity that the other 3 distilleries currently are, what we were hoping you could help us understand is what reason they could have, ultimate reason could they have for choosing to move away from the traditional methods of producing Barbadian rum by, adding sugar.
I mean, I don't really, you've tackled certain issues and that they've done on the GI, and I've been happy to respond because I want to offer a rebuttal to some of their claims. But in terms of what their motivations, I mean, you'd really best to direct that at them. I don't really want to speculate. And as I mentioned, our GI is very liberal in terms of your methods of rum making. So there's no reason there, there's loads of room. And, I'll get back to this point about, like this word innovation that gets thrown around. Innovation is a word very misused in the industry. And it, 99% of the time it's just sort of marketing nonsense. And so, not only do I stress that we have not tied down methods, we've just tied down basic principles like Barbados rum shall be made here. I mean, it's really not that onerous. But you can use different stills and different distillation. You can use juice, molasses. We really haven't tied down the methods. I would tackle this word innovation because this is one of the sort of disingenuous tactics used whenever people talk about GIs or AOCs or whatever. You will find it's a very easy way to resonate with people, to say, wow, you're going to stifle diversity or you're going to stifle innovation. And of course, this is patent nonsense. I mean, someone buying some novelty barrel of which there's no sustained production is just a novelty. That's not innovation. That's just a marketing gimmick. Real innovation is hard. Real innovation takes time. Real innovation moves around the industry. So it would be remiss of me not to tell you, for example, at Foursquare, one of the things that we do is we distill on the vacuum. So we distill at low temperature. We do our copper, when we're talking about copper. So we, in our stills, and particularly our newest still, which is to commission very shortly, we worked with University of Siena in Italy and assisted them in the development of a nano copper surface. So a surface, because copper plays a role as a catalyst. And so what we've been able to do is to get more of that catalytic effect per unit area of copper. And this is very important because you generally, when you build the stills, you know, if you build the stills bigger and the area is bigger and things like that, sorry, I'm just being very basic, to get more copper, you're going to also affect the thermodynamic effects of your distillation. So if you can get that copper to just change the catalytic effect, but build the stills the same size, the copper shape, same size, everything, then you can achieve a benefit of copper without compromising any other area. So these are things that take years to work and years to innovate. Our newest batch still, the newest still we're putting in is a batch still, a pot still, will be the first ever traditional still designed to run on the vacuum.
Right, okay.
Will be the first batch rum still ever to run on a vacuum.
Do you have a projection date for when it will be?
This month, I'm hoping to run.
Oh, okay.
So what that means is that we run on a lower temperature. So this is real innovation, and it's not stopped by the GI. I mean, the GI doesn't get into these kind of things. GI gets into things like, you know, you got to age in Barbados and don't add sugar and all of these things. It doesn't stop real innovation.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just want to make that part clear. So when we're talking about this thing, I mean, you know, us at _, we do natural fermentation, we do, you know, added yeast fermentation, we do cane juice, we do molasses, we do column stills, we do batch stills, we run on the vacuum, we use advanced, you know, innovative copper. We mill with screw press as opposed to traditional roller mills. I mean, you can walk through my distillery and find masses of innovation and masses of moving rum in different directions. So I always find it a bit rich when people, you know, whose idea of innovation is to use some novelty barrel, come and try and tell me about what is innovation or what's not innovation or what's restrictive or what's not restrictive. You know, it's like, please, come on. You know. You don't sing in my choir, so.
Okay, so we're coming close to the end. I've got just a few more questions for you. This next one's another interesting one that was posed by one of the guys here. They wanted to know, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is it for rum sold outside of Barbados to be an accurate reflection of the rum that's produced and consumed inside of Barbados by Barbadian people?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very important question. And it's, you know, with us, we do a lot of limited editions and different releases. And I've often explained to people that it's very, very important to me. And I guess it comes back a little bit to that earlier question. You know, anybody can make something different. It's a trite thing to do, to make something different. There's nothing particularly remarkable about, today I'll make the rum in a completely different way. There's nothing remarkable about that. I do feel always this sense that despite all those things I just told you, and doing juice and molasses, and, you know, we use Madeira barrels and sherry barrels and port barrels and cognac barrels, and we do lots of different things. And we do, you know, releases every year, new releases every year. I've always felt it is very, very important that no matter what release I do, people go, that's a Barbados rum. That's a _, rum. I can see the Barbados DNA in that. I can see the Barbados DNA in that. Having said that, there's nothing wrong with the migrations. And, you know, one of the things I often explain to people say, well, you know, do you do a lot of things differently now than you did 20 years ago or whatever? And I say, no, it's not so much that we do a lot of different things. I mean, there are some things that are different, but it's more a question of responding to the market. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I've always been making pot still rums, but the market today says, you know what? You can make rums with higher levels of pot still. You can make 100% pot still rum. So 20 years ago, I didn't have a pot still rum out there, whereas in the last couple of years, I've done a few releases. It's not really that I've changed. It's just the market has allowed me to release some of these things. You know, it's the same thing with cast strength. You know, we've always had the ability to release a cask strength rum. It comes out with barrel of cask strength. But it's a question of the market. So, to come back to your question, yes, it is very important. But of course, that will also shift and migrate too. So there's nothing. So you should never see that as being restrictive. One of the things that has given me great pleasure is that, we obviously sell in Barbados, our core rums, but we have a wonderful following for our, ECS or elite releases. And even though when you sit down and you create these rums, you're thinking export market, because of course, 90% of their sales are the export market. But Barbados still drinks on a per capita basis more of them. So it's very easy to be misled by absolute numbers. So, when I come out with something like, Foursquare Red Tab, 90% of the bottles were sold outside.
Right.
You walk down the street in Barbados and ask them if they ever heard of Foursquare Red Tab. No, they haven't. But walk down the street in London and ask anyone if they ever heard of Foursquare Red Tab. No. But my per capita consumption of Foursquare Red Tab, and I bet many people listening to this will probably be surprised, is way higher than any other country in the world.
Wow.
So yes, it's an export product, and yes, 90% of it is sold. But if you think that Barbadians aren't drinking it, but the same way that rum is just in a very elite niche product in the UK or the US, it's also a very elite niche product in Barbados.
Right. Okay.
So, in other words, don't think because you don't go in a rum shop in Barbados and see a bottle of Foursquare Red Tab that's not what Barbadians are drinking. They are. But the same way it's this uber niche product, it's an uber niche. But I can tell you, per capita, I sell a lot of bottles in Barbados.
Cool. So, last two. In the event that the GI broadens the definition of what Barbadian rum is as a result of all of this and how it's produced, do you think it's possible that a secondary label of some kind might act as some kind of proof that the rum has been authentically produced and bottled in Barbados? Do you think that might be something, a way of helping to solve this issue, or do you think that?
Well, you can write tiers in a GI. So, for example, let me give you a great example of this. It's Scotch whiskey. Single malt must be bottled in Scotland. Blended whiskey can be bottled outside. Oil must be aged inside. Demerara recently did theirs where oil must be aged there, but the top 3 tiers must be bottled in Demerara. So I would say to you, yes, you could have a GI that had tiers in it, but we've seen nothing, no proposal on that from those guys.
Right.
So we're open to any sensible solution. But as I say, because sometimes we're dealing with fundamentals, so, we're not arguing about how many square meters of copper there should be. We're arguing about things that are they're pretty hard to be negotiable. In other words, the Barbados rum has to be aged in Barbados. There's no
wiggle room. Yeah.
Now, as I mentioned, bottling is not a geographical influence. So, if they wanted to come and say, well, certain level of Barbados rum could be bottled outside, of course we would be open to discussion on that. But it's very hard to we've pared ourselves down, if you like, and voluntarily. In other words, we ourselves, because we are going into this new, that's why I say we have not written a GI with, big constrictions on methods and lots of technical stuff. And, that could happen in the future, but we haven't. So, and again, so then it's very disingenuous on them, because they will come and say, well, you don't want to negotiate on your position. But my answer to that is 2. 1, we're down to basic fundamentals. As I said, you can't argue that aging a rum overseas has an effect. and then at the same time say it GI must allow it. You can't make that argument. You have to make a different argument. You have to say it has no effect. So we're down to fundamental principles. So as they say, it's very disingenuous when you want to move. And we're down to these principles because we kind of agree, you know, we don't want to be too restrictive, you know. So, you know, so we think that, yeah, we have been a very fair partner in negotiation, and we feel they have been a very unfair partner in negotiation, completely intransigent.
Okay, well, I'm optimistic that you guys will work it out. And again, everything that I've seen, not just with regards to rum, but right across the Caribbean, GI is just a very hot topic right now. So I hope that you guys, it really works out. And
yeah, it's a hot topic, and it should be, because it's a principle that goes right across many things in which we're seeing. So when we look, for example, at the tourist industry, we are seeing scenarios where we have more visitors and less income. And that's because, what are we counting? We're counting cruise ship visitors. We're counting visitors to all-inclusives. So people are asking these same fundamental value-added questions. They're asking these same questions across our industries. Are we getting the fair deal? Or are we getting the full economic value? Even going as far as the oil find in Guyana, these questions are arising. Or are we getting a fair deal? And as we sort of move into these our more and more open economies, removal of, you know, protections that we once had, all of these are very important questions.
So glad you said that. I might need to get you back, Richard, because you just opened a can of worms with that one. That's something we discuss here all the time. You know, at the end of the day, businesses like yours, the things that we're doing in the Caribbean, really, they should be bringing value to the Caribbean.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with us, I mean, again, you're right, we're on a whole nother subject, but for our development in our region, you need capital. And so there is a good case for having foreign capital. But so the issue for me is less about the foreign investment, but where's the value added? So if the foreign investment is just to have the minimum and the value added abroad, that's exploitation.
Yes.
If the value is added here, that's the partnership.
Yes. 110%. That is an absolutely sterling point to end the interview on. Before we go, are there any messages or any parting comments that you'd like to make for any of the guys watching?
No, just thank you. And I mean, you know, thank you for taking an interest.
No, it's been awesome. And it's been very interesting. I've learned so much more about rum than I knew before. And I definitely urge, like, anyone watching this, if you get a chance to read some of Richard Seale's articles, just go to Google, type in his name, put in Foursquare Rum, read some of his articles. They have a wealth of information. Some of those dynamite comments that are in there are just awesome. I'll leave you with one more that we got from liquor.com.
Oh, good.
This one is another.
My word's coming back to haunt me.
It's awesome. In this one, Richard Seale recounts the story of a large liquor company.
Oh God, this is a true story. Absolutely
it's
true.
Awesome, absolutely awesome. So it's a large liquor company that approaches him about a partnership, and the executive, yeah,
for their brand.
The executives bragged about using focus groups to create precisely what consumers wanted with regards to rum. And Richard Seale's response, he told them, we do the exact opposite. We make what we like and then try to find someone to drink it. Awesome statement, Richard.
You should have seen his face.
Brilliant. Absolutely.
Two different entities. I mean, he's a big mega company. different philosophy.
Awesome.
There's room for both of us in this world.
Awesome. Okay, so we'll leave it there. Look, if you're watching this, next time you're selecting a drink, make sure you go down the store, buy a bottle of Foursquare rum. Let us know what your thoughts are on it. Let us know what your favorite bottle of rum is. As before, we highly recommend you check out some of Richard Seale's articles online. They will change and deepen your appreciation of what goes into producing our favorite spirit. And for articles on this particular issue, you can go to our Facebook page where we've got a post that lists a series of articles on this topic. And if you can't find it, just drop us a message at Carnival Network. And remember to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. This is Garvey Campbell. You're watching Carnival 24. And Richard, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
So, we hope you enjoyed the fourth part of our interview with Richard Seale. We've covered the subject of rum and how it's produced in Barbados, what makes Barbadian rum unique, what geographical indication is and why it's important, and the objection that 𝐕𝐈𝐹 had to the proposed Barbadian GI. We hope to have more interviews like this for you in future, and we really appreciate all of the likes, shares and comments that we've received while putting together this video series, interviewing Richard Seale and sharing his knowledge of rum with you. Thanks for supporting these videos. This is Garvey Campbell, and you are watching Carnival 24.